The morning alarm buzzed through the metal walls of Epsilon 7 mining station. Sujin rolled out of her narrow bunk and rubbed her tired eyes. Another day of being ignored was about to begin. She walked through the cramped corridors toward the engineering bay. Other workers moved past her without a word. Some were tall blue Nixarians with their fancy uniforms. Others were the rock-like Thrandians who always seemed angry. None of them ever spoke to her. Sujin was Kaleri. Her people had purple-tinted skin and large dark eyes. Most species in the galaxy thought the Kaleri were stupid. They said her people were only good for simple jobs, cleaning, carrying things. Basic repairs that no one else wanted to do, but Sujin had 3 engineering degrees from her home planet. She understood complex machines better than most of the engineers on this station. Nobody cared about that, though. She reached the engineering bay and saw the usual chaos. Red warning lights flashed everywhere. The main power grid was acting up. Again. It happened every few days because the system was old and poorly designed. Chief Engineer Veltar stood near the control panels. He was a Nixarian with bright blue skin and silver markings on his forehead. His uniform was perfectly clean while everyone else looked tired and dirty. "Sujin!" Veltar called out in his sharp voice. "Come here." She walked over quickly. When supervisors called, Kaleri were expected to run. "We have a new human contractor." "Arriving today," Veltar said. He looked annoyed about something. "Earth Command is sending someone to upgrade our mining equipment. You will be his assistant." Sujin nodded. She had heard about humans but never met one. They were new to galactic politics. Most species thought humans were strange because they treated all aliens the same way. "Sir, should I prepare the technical specifications for the mining arrays?" she asked. Veltar laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "You think too much, Kaleri. Just carry his tools and do what he tells you? Nothing more." The other engineers nearby started laughing too. Sujin felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She had worked on this station for 2 years. She knew every system better than some of the senior staff. But they only saw her as a servant. 2 hours later, a transport ship docked with the station. Sujin waited in the docking bay as instructed. She watched through the thick glass as the ship connected to the station airlock. The airlock opened with a hiss. A human stepped through. Sujin had seen pictures of humans before, but never one in person. He was shorter than most Nixarians, but taller than her. His skin was pale with dark hair. He wore a simple gray jumpsuit instead of a fancy uniform. The human looked around the docking bay with curious eyes. He carried a single bag over his shoulder and held a data pad in his hand. Veltar walked into the docking bay with 2 security guards. He wanted to make sure the human knew who was in charge here. "Welcome to Epsilon 7, Veltar said in his most important voice. "I am Chief Engineer Veltar. This station operates under Nixarian management protocols." The human nodded politely. "I'm Taeho Kim from Earth Engineering Corps. Thank you for having me." His voice was different from what Sujin expected. It was calm and friendly. Most supervisors spoke like they were always giving orders. "Your quarters are ready," Veltar continued. "We have assigned you an assistant for basic tasks. She is Kaleri, so do not expect much." Veltar pointed at Sujin like she was a piece of equipment. "She's nothing, just take her," Veltar said with a wave of his hand. "The Kaleri are only good for menial labor anyway. She can carry your tools and clean up after you." Sujin felt her heart sink. Those words hurt more than usual because the human was listening. She had hoped maybe someone from a different species might see her differently. Taeho looked at Veltar for a moment. Then he turned to Sujin. "What's your name?" he asked. Sujin was surprised. Supervisors never asked her name when she was assigned to help them. "Sujin, sir," she replied quietly. "Nice to meet you, Sujin. I'm Taeho." He actually smiled at her. "Have you worked on mining equipment before?" Veltar made an annoyed sound. "She does basic maintenance. Don't expect technical knowledge," but Taeho kept looking at Sujin. "What kind of maintenance?" I work on the power distribution systems and the ore processing units," she said carefully. She did not want to say too much and make Veltar angry. Interesting, Ho said. I'd like to see the equipment specifications when we get started. Veltar's blue face turned darker. The specifications are classified, she just follows orders. Taeho nodded, but Sujin noticed he was still looking at her with those curious eyes. They walked through the station corridors. Veltar pointed out important areas and explained the chain of command. Taeho listened politely, but Sujin could tell he was also studying everything around him. The main mining floor was huge and noisy. Giant machines pulled ore from deep underground. Conveyor belts moved rocks toward processing units. Everything was covered in dust and the air smelled like metal and engine oil. The equipment is 15 years old but functional, Veltar said proudly. We maintain good production numbers. Taeho walked over to one of the main drilling units. He looked at the control panel and frowned. This efficiency rating seems low, he said. Are there frequent breakdowns? Normal wear and tear, Veltar said quickly. Nothing we cannot handle. But Sujin knew the truth. The machines broke down constantly. She had ideas about how to fix the problems, but nobody wanted to hear them. Taeho spent the rest of the day touring the facility. Sujin followed quietly behind, carrying his bag and taking notes when he asked. She noticed he asked a lot of questions, good questions, the kind that showed he really understood how things worked. That evening, Taeho was assigned quarters near the human section of the station. As they walked there, he started talking to Sujin. How long have you worked? Here, he asked. 2 years, sir. And you enjoy working with the mining equipment? Sujin hesitated. Nobody had ever asked if she enjoyed her work. Yes, sir. I find it interesting. What's the biggest problem with the current setup? She looked around to make sure Veltar was not nearby. The power distribution is inefficient. The drilling units draw too much energy and the cooling systems cannot keep up. Taeho stopped walking. He turned to look at her with surprise. You've been thinking about the engineering problems? Yes, sir, but I'm just supposed to do maintenance. Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled again. Tomorrow I want you to show me exactly what you mean about the power distribution. For the first time in months, Sujin felt a small spark of hope. The next morning, Taeho found Sujin waiting outside his quarters. She looked nervous but excited. In her hands, she held several data pads with notes and diagrams. Good morning, Sujin, Taeho said. Ready to show me those power distribution problems? She nodded eagerly. Yes, sir. I brought some diagrams I made during my free time. They walked toward the main engineering section. Other workers stared as they passed. It was unusual to see a human talking seriously with a Kaleri. Sujin led him to a maintenance panel near the primary power grid. She opened it carefully and pointed to the thick cables inside. See how the power flows here? She said, tracing the path with her finger. The drilling units need huge amounts of energy, but the system sends power the long way around the station. Taeho looked closely at the setup. Show me on your diagrams. Sujin opened her first data pad. Her drawings were detailed and clear. She had mapped the entire power system of the station. If we reroute the main feed lines here and here, she pointed to specific locations, we could reduce energy loss by 30%. Maybe more. Taeho studied her work. His eyes grew wide with surprise. These were not simple maintenance notes. This was advanced engineering analysis. How did you learn to do this kind of system design? He asked. I studied it on my home planet, she said quietly. But nobody here wants to hear ideas from Kaleri. This is brilliant work, Taeho said. Have you shown this to Veltar? Sujin shook her head. He said I should only fix what breaks, not think about improvements. Taeho felt angry but tried. Not to show it? This young woman had solutions to problems that were costing the station huge amounts of money. And everyone was ignoring her because of her species. They spent the morning going through all of Sujin's ideas. She had solutions for cooling problems or processing inefficiencies and equipment wear issues. Each idea was smart and practical. Sujin, Taeho said, these improvements could increase station output by 2 or 3 times. Her large dark eyes lit up. Really? You think they would work? I think they're amazing. But we need to test them first. Just then, emergency alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors. Over the speakers, they heard Veltaris' voice. All engineering staff to the main power grid. We have a critical failure. Taeho and Sujin ran toward the emergency. They found chaos in the main engineering bay. Sparks flew from control panels. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. What happened? Taeho asked. Primary power coupling overloaded, said one of the Mixarian engineers. The whole grid is shutting down. We're losing life support. Veltar stood in the center of the chaos, shouting orders. But nothing was working. The backup systems were failing one by one. How long until complete shutdown? Taeho asked. 6 hours, Veltar said grimly, maybe less. Sujin whispered to Taeho, I know what's wrong. The power coupling was overloaded. Because of the inefficient routing I showed you. But I think I can fix it. What do you need? Access to the main control system, and maybe 2 hours. Taeho looked around at the panicking engineers. None of them had any solutions. Veltar, he called out, Sujin has an idea. The Nexarian chief engineer turned with an angry expression. This is not the time for Kaleri foolishness. The station is dying, Taeho said firmly. We should listen to all ideas. Veltar looked, ready to argue. But another explosion came from the power grid. More systems went offline. Fine, he said. But when this fails, you take responsibility. Sujin moved quickly to the main control panel. Her hands flew over the controls as she began implementing her power rerouting plan. What is she doing? Asked one of the Thrandian engineers. Saving us? Taeho replied. For the next 2 hours, Sujin worked with intense focus. She rerouted power lines, adjusted flow rates, and reconfigured the entire distribution system. Taeho helped by running cables and making connections under her guidance. The other engineers watched in silence. Some looked skeptical. Others seemed curious about what the Kaleri was doing. Power coupling stable, Sujin announced. Trying to restart the primary grid, she pressed a series of buttons. Everyone held their breath. The lights came back on. The air circulation system hummed to life. All around the engineering bay, control panels showed green status lights. Impossible, whispered Veltar, but Sujin was not finished. She continued working for another hour, fine-tuning her new power system. When she was done, the efficiency readings were better than anyone had ever seen. Output is up 40%, reported one of the monitoring technicians. Power consumption is down 20%. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the display screens showing the incredible improvement numbers. Taeho put his hand on Sujin's shoulder. You did it. She smiled but looked exhausted. It's just basic engineering. The system was fighting itself before. Veltar walked over slowly. His blue face showed confusion and anger. How did you know to do this? He demanded. I've been studying the problems for 2 years, Sujin said. I made notes and drawings. I just never had a chance to try my ideas. This will have to be reported to station management, Veltar said. He did not sound happy about it. Yes, it will, Taeho agreed. I'll make sure the report explains exactly who solved this crisis. Over the next few days, word spread through the station. The Kaleri engineer had saved everyone's lives and improved the station's performance beyond anything seen before. Some workers started nodding to Sujin in the corridors. A few even said thank you. But others seemed angry that a lesser species had shown up their best engineers. Taeho spent his time documenting everything Sujin had done. He recorded her explanations and took detailed photos of her modifications. He wanted to make sure no one could steal credit for her work. Why are you doing this? Sujin asked him one evening. Because good work deserves recognition, Taeho said, and because you have more ideas that could help people. Sujin looked out at the stars through the station viewport. Do you really think other people will listen to a Kaleri? I think smart people listen to good ideas, no matter where they come from. That night, Taeho sent his first report to Earth Command. It described Sujin's brilliant engineering work and her potential for even greater innovations. He had no idea that his report would change both of their lives forever. 3 weeks after Sujin saved the station, strange things started happening. Ships arrived that nobody expected. Important-looking aliens walked through the corridors asking questions. And Sujin noticed people staring at her more than usual. Date Daho found her in the engineering bay, working on her latest project. She was designing improvements to the ore processing system. "We need to talk," he said quietly, "somewhere private." They went to an empty storage room. Taeho looked excited but also worried. "My report about your work reached some very important people," he said. "Major engineering companies across the galaxy want to know how you increased efficiency by 40%. Sujin felt scared. "What kind of companies?" "Big ones. The kind that build starships and space stations. They're sending representatives here to investigate." "To investigate me?" "To investigate your innovations. They can't believe a mining station achieved these improvements." Over the next few days, Sujin met with engineers from different alien species. They asked detailed questions about her power system modifications. Some seemed impressed. Others acted like she was lying. A tall Nexarian from the Galactic Engineering Guild spent 3 hours examining her work. He took measurements and ran tests. When he finished, he looked confused. "The mathematics are correct," he admitted. "But how did you develop this approach?" "I studied power flow patterns," Sujin explained. "Kalari mathematics teaches us to see connections between systems." The engineer frowned. "Kalari mathematics? I was not aware your species had advanced mathematical concepts." "Most people aren't," Sujin said quietly. That evening, Taeho found Sujin sitting alone in the observation deck. She was looking out at the stars and seemed sad. "What's wrong?" he asked. "They don't believe me," she said. "They think I copied someone else's work. Or that you did the real engineering and I just followed orders." Taeho sat down beside her. "I know it's frustrating. But your work speaks for itself. Does it? Veltar has been telling everyone that Nixarian engineering principles made the improvements possible. He says I was just the tool that implemented his guidance." This made Taeho angry. He had seen Veltar panic during the crisis. The Nixarian chief engineer had no solutions until Sujin saved them all. "We have records of everything," Taeho said. "Video recordings, technical logs, your original diagrams. The truth is documented. Will that matter?" "I'm still just a Kalari." Taeho was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his datapad. "I want to show you something. These are messages from Earth Command. They're asking about you specifically." Sujin read the messages. Human engineers wanted to know about her mathematical approaches. Universities were interested in her unique problem-solving methods. Research facilities wanted to offer her positions. "They want to hire me?" she asked in surprise. "They want to work with you as an equal partner?" This was hard for Sujin to believe. She had never been treated as an equal by anyone except Taeho. The next morning brought more visitors. This time, representatives from 3 major starship manufacturers arrived together. They went straight to Veltar's office. Sujin was called to the meeting. She entered the office feeling nervous. The room was full of important-looking aliens in expensive clothes. "Sujin," Veltar said in his most formal voice, "these gentlemen have questions about the recent modifications." A wealthy-looking Throndian stepped forward. "We understand you assisted with some engineering work. We're prepared to offer your station significant compensation for the technical specifications." "The specifications?" Sujin asked. "The blueprints and equations for your power efficiency improvements. We want to buy them." Sujin looked at Taeho, who had been allowed to attend the meeting. He nodded encouragingly. "Those are my designs," she said. "I developed them myself." The Thrandian laughed. "Of course, but ownership falls to the station management. We're prepared to pay quite well." "How much?" Veltar asked, looking greedy. 50,000 galactic credits." Taeho stood up. "That's nowhere near what these innovations are worth." They could revolutionize industrial power systems across the galaxy. The visitors looked annoyed. They were not used to humans interfering in their business deals. The value is fair for work done by a Kylari under Nixarian supervision, said another alien. The work was done by an independent engineer, Tejo said firmly. And she has rights to her own innovations. This caused an argument. The alien businessmen insisted that Kylari could not own advanced technology patents. Veltar agreed with them, seeing an opportunity to make money. Tejo argued that Sujin's rights should be protected while they argued. Sujin quietly excused herself from the meeting. She went back to the engineering bay and continued working on her latest project. She was developing something new. Something that could change space travel itself. For months, she had been thinking about propulsion systems. The mathematical principles that helped her fix the power grid also applied to engine design. She had ideas about how to make faster than light travel more efficient. Her calculations showed it might be possible to reduce fuel requirements by 70%. Ships could travel farther and faster than ever before, but she kept this work secret. She had learned not to trust everyone with her ideas. That evening, Tejo found her working late in the engineering bay. How did the meeting end? She asked. Badly. They're threatening legal action to claim your innovations. They say Kylari can't hold patents for advanced technology. Sujin nodded sadly. She had expected this. But I have good news too, Tejo continued. Earth Command is sending a legal team. Human law recognizes individual ownership of innovations, regardless of species. Will that help here? Maybe. Human influence is growing in galactic politics. Our trade agreements include intellectual property protections. Sujin showed him her new propulsion calculations. Tejo's eyes went wide as he studied the equations. This could change everything, he whispered. How long have you been working? On this? A few weeks, but I'm scared to tell anyone else. You're right to be careful. This is worth more than just money. This could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. They worked together late into the night, refining Sujin's propulsion theories. Neither of them noticed the security camera. Recording their conversation, the next morning, Veltar called Sujin to his office again. This time, he was alone and looked very angry. I know what you're doing, he said. You're developing new technology without authorization. Sujin felt her heart sink. Someone had been watching her. All research on this station belongs to Nixarium management, Veltar continued. You will turn over all your work immediately. No, Sujin said quietly. Veltar looked shocked. Kylari workers never refuse direct orders. What did you say? I said no, this is my work, my ideas. You forget your place, Kylari. Guards. 2 security officers entered the office, but before they could act, Tejo walked in. Is there a problem here? He asked calmly. This does not concern humans, Veltar snapped. Actually, it does. Sujin is under the protection of human employment protocols. Any attempt to steal her intellectual property will be considered an act of aggression against Earth. Veltar stared at Tejo in disbelief. Humans were still new to galactic politics. Most aliens didn't take their laws seriously yet, but Tejo's calm confidence made everyone nervous. And Sujin realized that her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. Word traveled fast through the galactic business community. Within days, ships arrived at Epsilon 7 from every major corporation and government. The small mining station suddenly became the center of attention across known space. Sujin watched from the observation deck as another huge corporate vessel docked with the station. She counted 12 ships now, all here because of her work. Scared? Tejo asked, joining her at the viewport. Terrified, she admitted. I just wanted to fix some power problems. Now everyone is acting like I invented something world-changing. Maybe. You did. The station corridors buzzed with activity. Alien businessmen in expensive suits walked around with data pads and recording devices. Security guards followed them everywhere. Veltar had hired extra staff just to handle all the visitors, but the real chaos was in the meeting rooms. Every day brought new negotiations. Companies wanted to buy Sujin's power efficiency designs. Governments wanted exclusive licensing deals. Military organizations wanted to weaponize her innovations, and everyone was frustrated because Sujin kept saying no. They don't understand, she told Taeho during one of their private conversations. They see my equations and think about profit. But I see what these improvements could mean for smaller civilizations. What do you mean? Right now, only wealthy species can afford efficient power systems. My designs could make advanced technology available to everyone. Poor planets could have the same capabilities as rich ones, Taeho smiled. That's exactly why they're worried. The breakthrough came during a heated meeting with representatives from 5 major corporations. Sujin sat at a conference table surrounded by aliens who had been arguing for 3 hours. The offer is final, declared a Nixarian executive. 2 million galactic credits for exclusive rights to all your innovations. That includes work you haven't even completed yet, added a Thrandian businessman. Very generous for a calorie, Sujin looked around the table. These powerful aliens expected her to be grateful for their attention. They thought she should feel lucky that they wanted to buy her ideas. I need to ask you something, she said. Quietly, do you know what Kaleri mathematics actually teaches? The businessmen looked confused. One of them shrugged. Your species is known for basic counting and simple geometry, the Nixarian said dismissively. Sujin almost laughed. We study connection mathematics. The science of how separate systems interact and influence each other. It's been our specialty. For 3,000 years. I don't see how that's relevant, the Thrandian said impatiently. It's how I solved your power efficiency problems. Nixarian engineering treats each component as separate. Kaleri mathematics sees the whole system as connected. That's why I could find solutions you missed. The room went quiet. Several executives exchanged worried glances. Are you saying, one of them asked slowly, that Kaleri mathematical principles are more advanced than ours? I'm saying they're different. And useful, this revelation changed everything. If Kaleri mathematics was genuinely advanced, then Sujin wasn't just a lucky individual. She represented knowledge that could revolutionize. Multiple fields of science. The bidding war became intense. Within hours, the offers reached 10 million credits. Then 20 million. Companies started promising research partnerships and university positions, but Sujin had bigger plans. I want to present my work at the Galactic Technology Symposium, she announced during a meeting with Earth Command representatives. The human officials looked surprised. The symposium was the most prestigious scientific conference in the galaxy. Only the greatest minds were invited to present. That's ambitious, said Commander Park, the senior Earth diplomat. No Kaleri has ever presented at the symposium. Because no one ever gave us the chance, Sujin replied. The alien governments will try to block your presentation, Commander Park warned. They'll claim your work is too primitive for such an important venue. Then we'll prove them wrong. Taeho had been quietly documenting everything for weeks. He had video recordings of Sujin explaining her theories. He had photographs of her original handwritten calculations. He had detailed logs of her problem-solving process. We have evidence, he said. Clear proof that she developed these innovations independently? Commander Park thought for a moment. Earth Command will support your application. But you should know that presenting at the symposium will change your life completely. It's already changed, Sujin said. The question is whether it changes. For the better. The news of Sujin's symposium application spread quickly. Reaction was swift and hostile. The Nixarian Science Council issued a formal protest. Primitive species cannot contribute meaningfully to advanced scientific discourse. They declared, the Thrandian Academic Union called it, a dangerous precedent that undermines thousands of years of scientific hierarchy. Even some human scientists expressed doubts. They worried that supporting Sujin too strongly might damage Earth's reputation in galactic academia, but Sujin had allies now. Her power efficiency improvements had made believers of some important people. Several major corporations quietly supported her application because they wanted access to her future innovations. More importantly, she had caught the attention of the Symposium Selection Committee. These were the galaxy's most respected scientists, chosen for their ability to recognize genuine breakthrough discoveries. Dr. Kethver, the committee's chairman, was an ancient Zilonian known for his strict standards. He had attended every symposium for the past century and had never seen a Kaleri presentation, but he had studied Sujin's work personally, and he was impressed. The mathematical approach is genuinely novel, he told his fellow committee members. Whether it comes from a Kaleri or a Nexarian is irrelevant. Good science is good science. The committee voted to approve Sujin's presentation by a narrow margin. The announcement shocked the galactic scientific community. When Veltar heard the news, he flew into a rage. He called Sujin to his office and shouted at her for 20 minutes. "You're embarrassing this station," he yelled. "You're embarrassing your entire species. You'll make a fool of yourself in front of the galaxy's greatest minds." "Maybe," Sujin said calmly, "but I have to try." "I forbid it. You work for this station. You'll do as I command." "Actually," Tejo said, walking into the office, "she doesn't work for this station anymore." He handed Veltar an official document. Earth Command has offered Sujin a research position. She's now employed as an independent contractor under human protection. Veltar read the document with growing horror. Sujin was no longer under his authority. She was free to make her own decisions. "This is impossible," he sputtered. "She's Kaleri, they can't just leave." "They can if they have a better opportunity," Tejo said. "And Sujin has the best opportunity any engineer could ask for." As they left Veltar's office, Sujin felt scared but excited. In 2 months, she would stand before the galaxy's greatest scientific minds. She would present ideas that could change how the universe thought about her species, and she would either prove that intelligence exists everywhere or fail in the most public way possible. "Are you ready for this?" Tejo asked. Sujin looked out at the stars through the corridor viewport. Somewhere out there was the symposium station where her life would change forever. "I'm ready to try," she said. That night she began preparing the most important presentation of her life. The Galactic Technology Symposium was held on Kepler Station, a massive structure that orbited a binary star system. As Sujin's transport ship approached the station, she pressed her face against the viewport in amazement. The station was beautiful. Crystalline towers stretched in all directions, connected by tubes of transparent metal. Ships from every species in the galaxy docked at hundreds of ports. Lights sparkled like stars across the station's surface. "Nervous?" Tejo asked, sitting beside her. "Beyond nervous," Sujin admitted. "I keep thinking about all the ways this could go wrong." "Focus on all the ways it could go right." They had spent 2 months preparing. Sujin's presentation was perfect. Her slides were clear and detailed. Her demonstrations were simple but powerful. Everything was ready, but she knew the audience would be hostile. The docking process took an hour. When they finally disembarked, Sujin was surprised by the size of the crowd waiting for them. News reporters from dozens of species pointed cameras and recording devices at her face. "Miss Sujin," called out a Nexarian journalist, "how do you respond to critics who say Kaleri are intellectually incapable of advanced scientific work? Is it true you stole your innovations from human databases?" shouted another reporter. "Are you concerned about embarrassing your species on such a public stage?" Tejo stepped between Sujin and the reporters. "Miss Sujin will answer questions after her presentation. Right now she needs to prepare." They pushed through the crowd and made their way to the conference center. The building was enormous, with lecture halls that could hold thousands of beings. Sujin had never seen so many important scientists in one place. Her presentation was scheduled for the main auditorium the next morning. As they walked past the hall, she peeked inside and felt her stomach drop. The room was huge. Thousands of seats faced a stage with multiple projection screens. "How many people will be watching?" she asked weakly. "The live audience will be about 5,000, Tejo said. "But it's broadcast across the galaxy. Probably 100 million viewers." Sujin sat down on a nearby bench. I can't do this. What was I thinking? You were thinking about sharing knowledge that could help everyone, Tejo said gently. You were thinking about proving that intelligence doesn't depend on species. That evening, they attended the opening ceremony. Sujin wore her best clothes, a formal outfit in traditional Kaleri colors. She felt out of place among all the expensive uniforms and ceremonial robes. Dr. Kethver, the selection committee chairman, gave the opening speech. He was ancient even by Zelonian standards, with silver skin and wise eyes that had seen centuries of scientific progress. This year's symposium features presentations from the galaxy's brightest minds, he announced. We will hear about discoveries that could reshape our understanding of the universe. Then he looked directly at Sujin in the audience. We will also hear perspectives that challenge our assumptions about where great ideas come from. The crowd murmured. Everyone knew he was talking about the controversial Kaleri presentation. After the ceremony, Sujin was approached by several prominent scientists. Some were supportive and curious about her work. Others seemed skeptical or openly hostile. Professor Zelenoth, a famous Nixarian physicist, cornered her near the refreshment area. I've reviewed your published papers, he said in a condescending tone. The mathematics appear correct, but I question whether you truly understand the underlying principles. What makes you think I don't understand my own work? Sujin asked. Because advanced power systems theory requires knowledge that Kaleri educational systems simply don't provide. Either you had significant help, or you're presenting work that was developed by others. Several other scientists gathered around to listen. Sujin realized this was a test. If she couldn't defend her ideas here, tomorrow's presentation would be a disaster. Professor, could you explain the fundamental flaw in standard power distribution design? She asked. He looked annoyed. That's not the point. The point is whether you're qualified to present at this level. I'm asking because your critique suggests you don't understand why my approach works. Standard design treats each component as an isolated system, but power flows through connections, not components. Kaleri mathematics focuses on connection analysis, which is why we see solutions others miss. Professor Zelenoth frowned. He clearly hadn't expected such a detailed response. Connection analysis is a primitive concept, he said. Advanced engineering requires more sophisticated approaches. Does it? Sujin asked. Because my primitive approach increased power efficiency by 40%, while your sophisticated approach couldn't solve basic stability problems. The gathered scientists began murmuring among themselves. Some seemed impressed by Sujin's confidence. Others looked skeptical. The confrontation continued for another hour. More scientists joined the discussion, asking increasingly technical questions. Sujin answered each one calmly and clearly, demonstrating deep understanding of her own innovations. Gradually, the tone of the questions changed. Instead of trying to prove she was incompetent, the scientists began asking genuine questions about her methods. By the end of the evening, Sujin had gained some respect. Not from everyone, but from enough people to matter. The next morning arrived too quickly. Sujin stood backstage, watching as the auditorium filled with thousands of scientists, reporters, and government officials. The crowd was larger than expected. You're going to do great, Tejo said, adjusting her presentation equipment. What if they reject everything I say? Then you'll have tried. And trying is more than anyone expected from a Kaleri Engineer 6. Months ago, Dr. Kethver introduced her with careful words. Our next presenter represents a perspective we rarely hear at this symposium. Her work challenges conventional approaches to fundamental engineering problems. Sujin walked onto the stage. The lights were bright and hot. The audience was silent, waiting to see if she would succeed or fail. She looked out at thousands of faces. Some looked curious. Others seemed skeptical or hostile. In the front row, she spotted Professor Zelenoth and several other critics. 6 months ago, she began, I was considered nothing more than a maintenance worker. Today, I'm here to share discoveries that could change how we think about power, efficiency, and the connections between all things. Her voice was steady despite her nervousness. The audience listened quietly as she explained her mathematical approach. Then came the demonstration. Sujin had brought a working model of her power distribution system. On stage, she showed how her design achieved dramatically better efficiency than standard approaches. The audience watched in fascination, as her model consistently outperformed conventional systems. The improvements were undeniable. But the real test came during the question period. "Your claims seem impossible," said one Thrundian scientist. "How do we know this isn't an elaborate fraud?" "Because the mathematics are publicly available," Sujin replied. "Anyone can verify the calculations and test the results. But how did a Kaleri develop such advanced concepts?" pressed another questioner. "The same way anyone develops new ideas, by studying problems carefully and thinking about them differently." For 30 minutes, critics tried to discredit her work. They questioned her education, her methods, and her right to present at the symposium. Sujin answered every challenge with facts and evidence. She remained calm even when the questions became personal attacks. Finally, Dr. Kethver stood up. "I have a question," he said in his ancient, authoritative voice. "Can you show us practical applications beyond power distribution?" This was the moment Sujin had prepared for. She had kept her propulsion research secret until now. "Yes," she said. "I can show you how these same principles apply to faster-than-light travel." The auditorium fell completely silent. Propulsion technology was the most valuable science in the galaxy. Sujin presented her theoretical framework for more efficient FTL drives. The equations were elegant and the potential improvements were staggering. When she finished, the silence stretched for several long seconds. Then Dr. Kethver began to applaud. Slowly, other scientists joined in. Within moments, most of the auditorium was clapping, but not everyone. Sujin could see angry faces in the crowd. Some people were already leaving, clearly upset by what they had witnessed. As she walked off the stage, Taeho met her with a huge smile. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." But Sujin knew the real challenges were just beginning. She had proven that Kaleri could contribute to galactic science. Now she had to deal with the consequences of that proof. 6 months after the Galactic Technology Symposium, Sujin stood in her new laboratory on Earth. The facility was bigger than the entire engineering section of Epsilon 7. Through the large windows, she could see the blue oceans and green continents of humanity's home planet. It still felt like a dream. Her laboratory team included engineers from 12 different species. They worked together on projects that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The Kaleri connection mathematics that once seemed primitive now formed the foundation of revolutionary new technologies. "Director Sujin," called Dr. Martinez, her human research partner. "The test results are ready." Sujin smiled at the title, Director. 6 months ago, she had been dismissed as nothing. Now she led one of the galaxy's most important research facilities. The test results were better than expected. Their new propulsion system had achieved 68% efficiency improvement over standard FTL drives. Ships using her design could travel twice as far on half the fuel. "This will change everything," Dr. Martinez said excitedly. "Small civilizations will finally have access to long-range space travel." That had always been Sujin's goal. Not to make rich corporations richer, but to give everyone access to advanced technology. Taeho walked into the laboratory carrying a datapad and wearing a big smile. He was now Sujin's business partner and closest friend on Earth. "Good news," he announced. 3 more planetary governments want to license your power distribution designs. And the Kaleri homeworld just signed a major trade agreement with the Terran Federation. Sujin felt proud hearing this. Her success had opened doors for her entire species. Kaleri engineers were now sought after throughout the galaxy. Universities competed to recruit Kaleri mathematics students. "There's more," Taeho continued. "The Galactic Engineering Guild wants to establish a permanent research exchange program. They're calling it the Universal Innovation Initiative." "What does that mean?" "It means they want to study the mathematical approaches of every species in the galaxy. They finally understand that good ideas can come from anywhere. This was exactly what Sujin had hoped for. The galaxy was starting to see that intelligence existed in many forms across many species. Her personal communication device buzzed. A message from the Kaleri homeworld appeared on the screen. Director Sujin, the message read, "We have 50 young engineers ready for your mentorship program. When can they arrive on Earth?" Sujin had started the program 3 months ago. Young engineers from overlooked species came to her laboratory to learn and develop their own innovations. So far, she had mentored Kaleri, Zalonian, and Vorthan engineers. Each brought unique perspectives that led to new discoveries. "Tell them they can arrive next week," she told Taeho. "We have plenty of room and lots of projects." That afternoon, Sujin received a video call from an unexpected source. The face that appeared on her screen was blue with silver markings. It was Veltar. "Sujin," he said, looking uncomfortable. "I wanted to congratulate you on your success." She studied his face carefully. Veltar looked older and tired. His uniform was not as perfectly clean as she remembered. "Thank you," she said politely. "I also wanted to apologize," he continued. "I was wrong about your capabilities. I let prejudice cloud my judgment." This surprised Sujin. Nixarians rarely admitted mistakes, especially to species they considered inferior. "How are things at Epsilon 7? She asked. Veltar's expression grew even more uncomfortable. "Difficult. After you left, our efficiency ratings dropped back to previous levels. We've had 3 major system failures in the past 4 months. Have you tried implementing the modifications I documented?" "We tried, but we don't fully understand the principles behind your approach. The other engineers cannot replicate your methods." Sujin felt a mixture of sympathy and satisfaction. Veltar was learning the hard way that dismissing talent had consequences. "Perhaps I could send one of my junior engineers to help," she offered. "Someone who understands connection mathematics. Would you do that, after how I treated you?" "Everyone deserves a chance to improve," Sujin said. "Even people who make mistakes." After ending the call, Sujin walked to the observation deck of her laboratory. Earth turned slowly below, beautiful and peaceful. But her thoughts were focused on the stars beyond. Taeho joined her at the viewing window. "Feeling nostalgic?" he asked. "Thinking about the future," she replied. "A year ago, I thought my life would never change. Now I'm helping to change the entire galaxy. What's next?" Sujin pointed toward a distant star cluster. "I want to establish research stations throughout the galaxy, places where any species can come to share ideas and develop innovations. No more hierarchies based on prejudice. That's a big dream." "All the best dreams are big." They stood quietly for a moment, watching the stars. Then Sujin's communication device buzzed again. This time, the message was from Dr. Kethver at the Galactic Technology Symposium. "Director Sujin," the message read, "I have a proposition for you. The symposium committee wants to create a new category of presentations focused on innovative mathematical approaches. Would you be interested in serving as the inaugural keynote speaker?" Sujin showed the message to Taeho. He grinned widely. "From maintenance worker to keynote speaker in 1 year," he said. "That might be a galactic record." "It's not about me," Sujin said. "It's about proving that intelligence and creativity exist everywhere. We just need to listen for it." A few weeks later, Sujin received a package from the Kaleri homeworld. Inside was a traditional ceremonial robe, hand-woven with patterns that represented mathematical concepts. The accompanying note was from her former professor. "Wear this with pride," the note read. "You have brought honor to all Kaleri and open minds throughout the galaxy. Your journey from dismissed student to galactic leader proves that worth cannot be hidden forever." Sujin held the robe carefully. The patterns told the story of connection mathematics in visual form. Each thread represented relationships between systems, ideas, and possibilities. That evening, she wore the robe to a dinner celebrating the opening of 3 new research facilities. Scientists from dozens of species attended, representing the most diverse scientific gathering in galactic history. During her speech, Sujin reflected on her journey. "1 year ago, I was told I was nothing," she said to the assembled crowd. "Just take her," they said. "The Kaleri are only good for menial labor." The audience listened intently. Many of them had similar stories of being underestimated because of their species or background. "But humans taught me something important," she continued, looking at Tejo in the audience. "They taught me that worth is not determined by species or status. It's determined by ideas, creativity, and the willingness to see connections that others miss." She paused and looked around the room at faces from dozens of different worlds. "Today we work together as equals, not because someone gave us permission, but because good ideas speak for themselves. And because there are people willing to listen?" The applause was thunderous. But for Sujin, the real reward was seeing young engineers from overlooked species sitting at tables with galactic leaders, sharing ideas and planning projects together. After the dinner, she walked alone through the laboratory corridors. In one room, a young Vorthan engineer worked late on antigrav improvements. In another, a Kaleri mathematician collaborated with a human physicist on theoretical frameworks. This was her legacy. Not just the technologies she had developed, but the barriers she had broken. The door she had opened for others. Sujin's personal device chimed with a message from Earth Command. They wanted her to lead a diplomatic mission to establish research partnerships with newly discovered civilizations. She smiled and typed her response. "When do we leave?" The galaxy was vast and full of untapped potential, and Sujin intended to find it all. As she looked out at the stars one more time, she remembered Veltar's dismissive words. "She's nothing, just take her." Now those same words had become her motivation. Everyone is something, everyone has value, and everyone deserves a chance to prove their worth. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place.